Hey guys, welcome to another live. We're going to be doing this every day for a little while. Reminder, if you're interested in checking out the webinar we have specifically about reversing autoimmune, but it's useful, no matter what your health concerns are, that's the link over there. You can check it out. It's going to be live on Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Yeah, looking forward to it. And then there's going to be a 5-day challenge. So if you're interested in the webinar, looking forward to taking control of your health, 5 days to take control of your health, Monday to Friday next week. Okay. So last time we talked about snake oil and the dangers of just believing the hype about some of these weight loss drugs, and how, really if you look in sort of not really ancient history, but at least for a couple hundred years, this sort of miracle weight loss drug that is supposed to have no side effects or whatever, that's like, there's a long history of that. And most of those, many of them are harmless. Like, I think if you just have snake oil, like literally the oil derived from snakes, I don't think that's going to cause anyone much harm. But some of them are actually harmful. And today I wanted to talk about something called Fen-Phen. Fen-Phen is a combination of two drugs. Let me see if I can pronounce them correctly. Fenfluramine and phentermine. Flentermine. Okay. And one of those drugs, I think the latter, phentermine, is still available if you have a prescription. If you have a certain medical condition, you can still get some doses of this. But in the 90s, this was a weight loss drug. And the thing about it is, when taken in combination, they really, really worked. Like, it really caused weight loss. But it also led to a number of other things. So the most serious complication and the most common complication was people would develop heart disease. So think about that for a second. Like, we're told that heart disease is caused by, saturated fat and these other things and natural foods sometimes. And what caused a huge amount of heart disease was taking these drugs, which were also, at the same time as you were getting heart disease, you were losing weight. So that's something to think about. But for me, the more serious side effects were things to do with depression and even suicidal ideation, right? These are not good drugs to be taking in combination, it turns out. So they were pulled. I mean, it was pulled after a number of years, right? And a couple of legal cases. There's a case with Columbia University, something called the Research Foundation on the City University of New York. There was all this drama, and it makes me wonder in today's. So at the moment, why do I bring up Fen-Phen? Because at the moment, it feels like we're in the middle of another overhyped. These are the drugs that will end weight loss. End weight gain. These are the drugs that anyone can take to lose weight, which are those semaglutide and the remaining, those Gila monster venom derived drugs. There's a great interview I have on my YouTube. For those of you who are checking this out on YouTube, please check it out. It dropped last Friday, an interview with Graham Phillips. He's the pharmacist who left drugs. That is his moniker. Really interesting guy, and we got pretty deep into this discussion about which of these drugs are appropriate to take at which time, if any, and in which use case. And to give the punchline away, there is a use case, but it's a very specific use case. If you are someone who is struggling with food addiction and can't change your diet for whatever reason, then maybe this may have a role. And in fact, it may have a role even in, say, psychiatric disorders and so on. Listen, I'm not making any recommendations, and obviously consult your doctor. But if the use case that he was talking about as a licensed pharmacist was someone has those conditions, they're a carb addict, they can't give up their carbs, we inject them once, and with the smallest allowed dose, or the smallest available dose, and then we'll try not to inject them ever again, is basically what he said. Maybe we'll inject them one more time. So what happens when you get injected with these things is straight away it slows down the gastric tract, right? And you feel nauseous as a result of that. Now that nausea can be pretty bad. So there's a couple of interviews I was able to find with Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry, a very funny, very brilliant British comedian who has had weight issues all his life. He lost weight during COVID, then he gained it back. That's another video that I've been meaning to make about how he lost and gained weight, but I'll do that another time. But for the purposes of this video, he was on that drug. He did lose weight, and he was, in fact, if you go on interviews, find interviews with him 2018, 2019, he was like all about it. But then he was vomiting at 1.5 times per day. He couldn't keep anything down at all. The side effects can be pretty serious of these drugs, right? So why do I bring this stuff up? Because at the end of the day, you have choices. We always promote agency. I'm not going to tell anyone to do anything or to not do anything. What I want to tell people to do, or what I want people to know, is that every decision that you make has consequences. And so if you choose to use the drugs to lose weight, that may be the right choice for you at where you are right now. But just know that those things all have consequences, right? What, as we discussed in that interview, the big consequence with those drugs is you lose muscle mass, and muscle mass is something as we get older, it gets even harder to gain back. So you never want to take those drugs without also increasing the amount of resistance training you're doing, the amount of exercise you're doing. And frankly, if you increase the amount of resistance training and you increase the amount of exercise, maybe you don't need those drugs at all, right? Again, that's not really my wheelhouse. I deal more in diet than the exercise piece, but I also deal with exercise, and I see that it makes a big difference to blood sugar levels, blood sugar consistency, and so on. And that'll help with cravings. That'll help with all kinds of things, right? So yeah, so let me know. I see there's a bunch of people watching now. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, these drugs. If anyone's ever taken them, let me know. You can also comment after this video is up and let me know what you think. For me, it's like, it all goes back to the Hippocratic Oath. Every single talk I give pretty much goes back to the Hippocratic Oath. What is the Hippocratic Oath? First, do no harm. Simple. And I cannot prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that taking those drugs for long periods of time, I cannot prove that it is safe to do so. There's no way I can prove that. We don't have the studies. We don't have the data. There's just no way, right? So given that I can't prove that, I won't recommend it. What will I recommend? I will recommend eating and living the way humans have been living, eating and living for hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years, right? And if you do that, and obviously, 100% of people who do that see benefits. If you don't cure everything, which is entirely possible, there's no, like I said, there's no silver bullet here. It'll at least put you in a place where that food noise is just quieter. It'll at least put you in a place where you can actually make better decisions about your health, about even what drugs to take, what supplements to take, and so on. You can make more informed decisions. You can feel in control of your life, maybe for the first time ever for some people, right? Because that food noise, at least in just thinking about my case, that food noise was so loud, that carb addiction was so loud for so many years, and I was just, stuffing down the cookies and the cakes and whatever, that I didn't really, now looking back on it, I would never have described myself as someone who didn't have control during those years. But looking back on it, like, did I have control? I don't think I did. I think it was a sort of, in some aspects, I was living in a prison. I was a slave to what was in the fridge, and I had to have certain things in the fridge at certain times, right? So, some food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks so much, and I will see you in the next one.